So solving two-step equations. So we're going to practice that. Remember that a two-step equation is simply two one-step equations. We know that we have to deal with the number term first by doing the opposite of the number, positive or negative. And then we do the variable term by doing the opposite of the operation, which is multiplying or dividing. Okay, so I'm just going to throw some problems out and we'll work through them. So let's start with negative 4x plus 6 equals, how about 14? Okay, so we see that our variables are on the left-hand side, so that's the side we work on. We have a number term right here, a variable term right there, because it has a variable, and then we have the number term right there, because it doesn't have a variable. So we know we get rid of the number term first. It's a positive 6, so I'm going to do the opposite, which is a negative 6 on both sides. So that's a step. These then cancel, so I'm left with my negative 4x equals 8. Now we have just a simple one-step multiplication. So I have a negative 4 times x, so we know the opposite would be dividing by negative 4. Make sure you have the same number on top and bottom to cancel it out. We know that that equals 1, and 1 times x would just be x. So we can cancel out the negative 4's and the negative. So I'm left with my x equals, do the sign first. This is a positive, divided by a negative is a negative, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. All right, next one. So let's do, how about negative x divided by 3 minus 8 equals negative 5. Okay, we know that we've been getting rid of the subtraction. So if you do that every time, make it a habit, makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to do same, change, opposite. Okay, here's the side of the equation we work on with the variable. We deal with the number term first, so the opposite of negative 8 is positive 8. So that's one step. The negative 8 and positive 8 cancel. So I'm left with still my negative x divided by 3 equals a negative 5 and a positive 8. I have more positives, so my answer is positive, and then I subtract. So that equals 3. Now, we know from class that there's 3 ways to write a fraction with a negative. We can put the negative on top with the numerator. We can put the negative in the middle with the fraction bar, or we can put the negative on the bottom with the denominator. So in this case, like we practiced in class, let's go ahead and cross that out and put it down there to make it a little easier. So we're dividing by negative 3. So now the opposite would be multiplying by negative 3. You got to have the same number on top and bottom. So do it on the other side. So our negative 3 and negative 3 cancel, and you're left with the x equals, and then positive times a negative is a negative, and 3 times 3 is 9. So we're just doing one-step equations, but we're doing it twice basically. Okay, next one. Let's go ahead and do something a little different where we put the variable on the other side. How about negative 5 plus 3x? Okay, this time we're working on the right-hand side because that's where our variable is at. So we have a number term here, the negative 5, and a variable term. So we're going to get rid of the number term first. Do not work with that one. That's already on the left-hand side. We need to get the x by itself, so we have to get rid of that one. So the opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. Do it on both sides of the equation. Okay, the negative 5 and positive 5 cancel. And over here I have a negative and a positive, so I take the sign of the bigger number, which is negative, and then 14 minus 5 is 9. And that, of course, equals 3x. Okay, I'm multiplying by 3, so we know the opposite is dividing by 3. So do that on both sides. 3 on top, 3 on the bottom cancel. Okay, negative divided by positive is a negative. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and we have x. Now, we don't want to put our x's on the right. We want to put them on the left. So in this case, we're going to switch it around, and we're going to put the x over here equals negative 3 like that. That's the proper way to write the solution. Okay, another one. How about negative 5x minus a negative 2 equals positive 4. The reason we want to change this subtraction right here to addition is people think, well, gee, I got to get rid of the negative 2, so I'm going to do a positive 2. But if we go ahead and do our same change opposite, that's really a positive 2. So now our opposite is negative 2. So it's just easier to change your problems to addition. So the negative 2 and positive 2 cancel. And I'm left with my negative 5x. And that equals 4 and a negative 2 is a positive 2. Okay, I'm multiplying by negative 5, so we know the opposite is dividing by a negative 5. Some kids want to do the opposite operation and then the opposite sign, so they're doing a combination of steps that doesn't work. You got to have the same number on top and bottom, so those cancel. And I'm left with my, well, I forgot to divide by negative 5 on this side. So x equals positive divided by negative is a negative, and 2/5 is already simplified. So remember, in the end, you have to simplify your fractions. Okay. All right, let's do one where we have, how about 5 minus, and this time we're going to minus the variable term. So that equals, how about negative 8. Okay, we want to do our same change opposite again. So in this case, so you should recognize that we're going to have a negative variable in the end because we have one to start. So we're going to have to deal with that. Okay, here's our number term. So we do the opposite. A positive 5 is negative 5. Okay, those cancel. And I'm left with my negative 3x equals a negative and more negatives is a negative 13. So we don't want to say minus there because too many kids will subtract when it's really an addition problem. So don't say minus, say negative, and you won't have that problem. Okay, so here's our negative variable. So now we know that the opposite of multiplying by negative 3 is dividing by negative 3. And that will get rid of that negative part. So those cancel. And we're left with x equals negative divided by negative is a positive. Okay, 13 over 3. We know that both of these are prime. No other number goes into them other than 1 and the numbers themselves. So this can't be simplified. We actually call that relatively prime. And we don't want to change our answer into a mixed number or a decimal. This is the accepted way. All right, we'll do one more problem. All right, how about 8 plus x over 4 equals negative 10. Okay, here's our side of our equation we work with because there's our variable term. We have a positive 8, so that's our number term. So we do the opposite of that, which is a negative 8. Do a negative 8 on this side. Our positive 8 and negative 8 cancel. We're left with x over 4 equals, and again we have the same situation as the last problem. This is an and problem. Negative 10 and negative 8 is a negative 18. Now we're dividing by 4, so we know the opposite is multiplying by 4. Do that on both sides. 4 on top, 4 on the bottom, cancel. And we're left with x equals negative times a positive is a negative, and then 18 times 4. Well, 4 times that 10 is 40. 4 times 8 is 32. 40 and 32 is 72. So our answer is negative 72. Hopefully this helped you, and if you practice, you're going to get better at this. So good work.